Somebody give them to someone so they can use it. No.
That's what you're supposed to do. After you use it, after the person who owns the lulav uses the lulav, he gifts it to someone. Now, if he wants to gift it to someone before he uses it, but then he has to hope that the guy's going to. Now, how are you gifting it to him? Are you gifting it to him with a condition to give it back? So if you gift him with the condition to give it back, so then you're fine, and you know you're going to get it back. That's how you would use your lulav first day of the holiday. Or you want to help that person fulfill his mitzvah. You help that person fulfill his mitzvah by gifting it to him the first day. What do you say? Right? You see it, right? Okay. So in the art scroll, okay, in the art scroll, we're on 41B, 41B getting towards the bottom, 41B3 on the right side. Amalei Mar Baramema Rav Ashi. Mar Baravima says to Rav Ashi. You have it? 41B3? You have it? Right. Mar, the son of Amema, said to Rav Ashi, Abba, Teluye Kamitzalibe. My father, who was Amemar, would actually pray. He loved the mitzvah of lulav so much, he actually held the lulav in his hand while he prayed. That was his love for the mitzvah so much. Now, the question is, did he actually hold the hadassim and the aravot in his hands also? I would think it's the lulav, the etrog, and the hadassim, and the aravot. Because the lulav by itself, you will not be able to fulfill the mitzvah. There's no mitzvah, just the lulav. So I would suggest that when it says that he davened, I would think he davened holding lulav. The lulav has a dasim and a ravot tied to the lulav, right? So the lulav already has 3 of the 4. I presume he also had the etrog in the other hand when he davened. That's and Rashi says, why did he hold the lulav in his hand when he davened? Because of the rov, his great love for the mitzvah, or he would daven with it. He davened actually the Shemona Esrei, the whole davening, he davened holding the lulav. It's so precious to him. It's like, if someone had a baby, right? They hold the baby, they love the baby, they're holding the baby, sign of love that they have for the baby. So this is the love that he had for the lulav. So the Gemara questions this conduct. So the Gemara says, Meitive, I'll ask you a question. I have a question on this. Lo yochaz adam tefillin biyado, v'sefer b'cheiko. A person is not allowed to hold the tefillin in his hand. You have a pair of tefillin, and you're not wearing the tefillin, but you're holding the pair of tefillin, or you're holding a sefer Torah. You can't hold the sefer Torah in your hand and v'yitpalel and daven. Let's say you have a small sefer Torah, right? And so it's not so heavy for you to hold the sefer Torah. You have tefillin. Now you love your tefillin, cherish your tefillin. We don't say that you can hold your tefillin in your hand, or hold the sefer Torah in your hand. You love the mitzvah so much because what are we afraid? Because since you're busy davening, in the middle of davening, you might go ahead and drop the sefer Torah, but you're preoccupied with your tefillah. And similarly, you're preoccupied with your tefillah, you might drop the tefillin that are in your hand. Right, you're not wearing the tefillin. You're ready. let's say you came early. Let's say it's mincha time, and you don't have to hold tefillin. You don't have to wear tefillin by mincha time. So don't hold it in your hand because maybe you're going to you're not you're going to be busy in your davening, and because because you're going to be busy in the davening, you don't want it to fall. You don't want your tefillin to fall. You don't want the Sefer Torah to fall. I mean, if your Sefer Torah falls, you have to fast. Rashi says the problem is that if they're going to fall down, they're going to fall, they're going to be disgraced. You know, if tefillin falls, it's a disgrace for the tefillin. The Sefer Torah falls. I mean, the fact that whether you have to fast or not is not the bigger issue. Is that you're going to disgrace the tefillin or disgrace the Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah on the floor. So therefore, because you're going to be so preoccupied to make sure that the tefillin doesn't fall, the Sefer Torah doesn't fall. So what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to focus. You won't be able to do multitask. You won't.
Same statement. Normally, okay.
We're going to look. We'll look at that in a minute. So you therefore we want you to focus in on your davening, right? When you daven, you're supposed to have not things that distract your davening, right? So you have to be able to concentrate. Therefore, if there's a certain bad smell, you can't pray in a place that there's a bad smell. It'll distract your focus. So too, if you're having holding your tefillin in your hand, or let's say Sefer Torah in your hand, you're not going to be able to focus properly on your davening. That's the problem. Maybe you'll be careful that it shouldn't fall, right? Warning Adam. You're gonna be careful that it shouldn't fall, but you're going to, but you're not going to be able to have proper intention when the kavanah when you pray. Lo yashtin behem. If you're holding your tefillin, or you're holding a Sefer Torah, don't go ahead and urinate. Now, what is it talking about? The person is holding his tefillin in his hand. They're not tied to his hand, and he shouldn't. You see, there are certain conditions that technically, there's certain situations that a person might be allowed to actually urinate under certain circumstances while he's wearing his tefillin. But here we're saying that when a person, we're talking about a person when he urinates, some um, some of the urine might go on his foot, might go on his feet, and a person would have to clean that from his feet if any splash goes onto his feet. And therefore, if you're holding your tefillin in your hand while you're urinating in such a situation, that's going to be you're gonna just your hands that have the tefillin in your hand. You can't go ahead and clean your foot with hands have tefillin on it. That meaning there are just like we said, Mr. Ralph, there are circumstances under certain conditions that a person can actually be wearing his tefillin. Let's say, we have to remember the old days they would wear the tefillin the whole day. Like we wear tzitzit the whole day. We don't take off our tzitzit when we go to urinate. So now even though tefillin is much holier than tzitzit, and the tefillin contains the name of Hashem and so on. So whatever the circumstance, they might be able to urinate while they're wearing the tefillin. But in this particular case, we're talking about a case that we're concerned that he's holding the tefillin, and in a way that if he would urinate, we're concerned that a situation that it might go on his feet, and he has to clean it from his feet, and therefore he'll get the tefillin dirty. So bottom line is, you can't be holding your tefillin when he can't be holding his tefillin in his hand. The situation when he has a tefillin when he's urinating. and you can't sleep when you're holding your tefillin in your hand. If you're holding the tefillin in your hand, you have your tefillin, you can't sleep lo shinat kevav lo shinat arai. Not a temporary sleep, not a permanent sleep. Well, because what will happen if you sleep with the tefillin in your hand? Obviously, there's a great concern that they're going to fall. If you're going to sleep, if you're holding a tefillin, if I'm holding my tefillin, this is my tefillin, and I'm holding it. If I go to sleep holding my tefillin, meaning there are halachot about wearing a tefillin, not to sleep when you're wearing a tefillin, not to lose focus, and but here I'm not wearing my tefillin. I'm holding my tefillin in my hand. Right? There's certain halachot when you're wearing your tefillin, you're not supposed to lose focus that you have your tefillin on, or you might not supposed to emit gazes when you're wearing a tefillin. Right? You have to be careful. And then when a person falls asleep, there's concern that you might emit gases when you fall asleep. Right? You're not in control of what's going on when you're sleeping. So if you're sleeping with your tefillin, there's a concern that you're not gonna. There's a what you might take place. The emitting of gases is inappropriate when you're wearing a tefillin. But here you're not wearing a tefillin. What are you doing? You're holding it in your hand. So what's the concern? What's the problem? The problem is maybe the tefillin, if you fall asleep with it holding in the hand, the tefillin will fall on the floor, and therefore there's that'll be disgrace for the tefillin. Now, in the Gemara, if a person's wearing tefillin, there's no concern that the tefillin will actually fall off. It's going to fall because you're wearing tefillin. So when you're wearing tefillin, you can't sleep. You can't sleep a permanent sleep because maybe what will happen, you'll emit gases. But a temporary sleep, what I recall, there's a circumstance that if you that under certain circumstances, there's allowance to have a small little sleep. Only under certain circumstances, maybe you have to put your head between your knees to ensure certain things. But here we're talking about you don't even have that allowance. You don't even have that temporary allowance that might be under certain circumstances that you could sleep with your tefillin, a temporary sleep if you do certain things. But here, even a temporary sleep is a problem because if you have your tefillin in your hand, a temporary sleep, you'll fall down. If you sleep for a minute, holding a tefillin in your hand, I'm holding the tefillin in my hand like this. If I fall asleep for a minute, 30 seconds, any amount of time, or whatever, temporary amount of time, the tefillin will fall. I'm not conscious now. A person's not conscious when he's holding tefillin in his hand. Adam, is that correct? Therefore, you can't. A guy feels I'm very tired. Don't hold the tefillin in your hand. Put the tefillin on down. Don't keep it in your hand. But that tefillin might fall. But if you're falling asleep, it might fall. So that's that halacha. V'amar Shmuel. And Shmuel says, Sakin ukarat. And Shmuel says, if you have a knife, or you have a plate, or you have kikar, or you have a loaf of bread, umaos, ma'ot, or you have money, if you have coins. So in all these cases, the same would apply if I have a knife in my hand. What am I afraid? I'm afraid if I want to pray and have a knife in my hand, I'm afraid the knife might fall. And if the knife might fall, it might hurt the person who's holding the knife. It might stab his foot if he's holding the knife when he's prays. Now, I mean, again, what's the issue? Since you're worried that the knife might fall, you're going to be focused on the knife instead of focus on your prayers. So we're not so much here. We're not confident that you have multitasking. You're able to multitask properly, that you won't lose focus on your prayer. Just to bring everybody up to date, we're talking about praying in a way that you're going to have something that's going to distract you. Is that clear, Adam? If you're holding a knife in your hand or you're holding a loaf of bread in your hand, what are you afraid? Bread, if it falls on the ground, let's say it's a muddy ground, it falls on the ground. It's not like a piece of bread falls on this carpet. It won't be disgraced, the bread. Might not be so pretty, but it fell on the carpet. But if you have to deal with dirt floors, piece of bread falls on the floor, it becomes disgraced. And therefore, you're going to be focused on the bread instead of be focused on your davening.
What about someone's drinking coffee?
Right. So it's the same thing. If you'll be holding a coffee in your hand, you're going to be you don't want that coffee to spill. So therefore, you don't want the coffee to spill. So therefore, you're going to be focused on the coffee instead of focused on your davening. So therefore, the guy's going to be holding a cell phone in his hand when he davens. So he's focused on this phone, even if he's not looking at his phone, because he doesn't want his phone to fall on the floor. He's afraid maybe if his phone falls on the floor, maybe it get cracked, maybe the screen will crack, whatever it will be. You can't be doing other things, multitasking, because you're going to lose your focus. So same thing with the money. Let's say you have money in your hand, you're going to be afraid. Let's say you have coins in your hand, maybe it's going to drop. Maybe you're going to drop the coins. And if you drop the coins, it's going to be hard for you to find the coins. They might scatter morning. They might scatter around morning, Simon. So therefore, you can't go ahead and do that. So the Gemara's question is, so here's the Gemara's question. How could he go ahead and hold the lulav in his hand? He held the lulav in his hand when he prayed. If you hold the lulav in your hand when you pray, you're going to not be able to focus. You're going to be multitasking. You're not going to be able to focus. You're going to be afraid that the lulav might fall. Maybe the lulav will become invalid. Maybe the lulav might break. I mean, you might be holding the etrog of the hand, the way we are suggesting that you're holding the etrog as well. You're afraid if the etrog falls, maybe the pitam will break. You don't want, you don't want to disgrace your lulav, your etrog. So you hadasim, they're revolt. You don't want the top to break off. Different things. There's concerns if it falls. So how could the rabbi, just to bring Simon up to date, the rabbi prayed. It said that the Gemara said that one of the rabbis, a son, reports about his father, right? Who was the son? Mar, the son of Amemar, spoke about his father's great love for the lulav and the mitzvah that he actually prayed holding his lulav in his hand. He prayed that. No one prays with the Amidah Adam, right? We don't pray that Amidah with the lulav in our hand, correct? We put the lulav down. We say hallow with the lulav in the hand. We don't pray at Amidah, the Shemona Esrei, with the lulav in the hand, right, Simon? Only the Hallel with the lulav. And he actually prayed that Amidah with the lulav in his hand. So the Gemara question, how could you do that? We find in Halacha, if you're holding certain things in your hand, that will distract you from focusing on your prayer, because you're going to be focusing on this, that I shouldn't drop this if I'm going to be holding the lulav. So why was he allowed to do that? So the Gemara says an interesting answer. The Gemara says, Hatam lav mitzvah ninu. Over there, when you're holding something that's not mitzvah, you're holding money in your hands, you're holding bread in your hands, you're holding a plate, a dish in your hand, plate in your hand. That's not a mitzvah. You're not involved in a mitzvah. Even when you're holding a Sefer Torah in your hand, you're just holding the Sefer Torah for I have a Sefer Torah. I'm not doing a mitzvah. There's no mitzvah that I'm involved with. I want to hold the Sefer Torah when I'm praying. There's no mitzvah of Sefer Torah. There's a mitzvah to learn Sefer Torah, right? No mitzvah of holding us in that. Yes, we honor the Sefer Torah. We carry the Sefer Torah, but that's all the purpose of holding the Sefer, carrying the Sefer Torah to bring it to the bima to read the Torah. But there's no on any regular day. There's no mitzvah to hold the Sefer Torah in my hand. There's no mitzvah to hold tefillin in my hands, just to hold it in my hand. There's a mitzvah to wear tefillin. There's a mitzvah to learn Torah. But when it comes to lulav on Sukkot, there's a mitzvah to take a lulav. That is the mitzvah, to take a lulav, to wave the lulav. The Torah says, take a lulav. So being that is the mitzvah on the day of Sukkot. So therefore, there's an extra focus. Rashi said, we'll say the Gemara and then we'll say the Rashi. The Gemara says, Hatam lav mitzvah nenu v'torah bu. Since that's not the mitzvah, that's not your responsibility for you to do today, that's going to preoccupy with this, because you're doing something extra. This is not part of what you need to do today. However, hacha mitzvah ninu v'lo tardu. But when it's the lulav, when it's the time of the mitzvah, it's not going to distract you. So Rashi says very eloquently. Rashi says, when the taking of the lulav, the holding of the lulav is a mitzvah on Sukkot, because it's so cherished by you, when something is so beloved by a person, holding it and watching it is not difficult. When something is loved, when something is so precious, you're so excited about it, you're like, it's floating in air, so to speak. My excitement over lulav, it's like, it's natural. Because it's natural for me to hold it today. And natural for me to hold it today does not distract me. I can multitask with the lulav in my hand and praying at the same time. Because of the excitement and the love for the lulav, it becomes lighter for me. But when something is not a mitzvah, I have no mitzvah to hold bread in my hands. I have no mitzvah to hold money in my hands. I have no mitzvah to hold the tefillin in my hands. Mitzvah to wear the tefillin. So therefore, then it becomes, there's something, I'm doing a second thing. There's something extra that I'm doing, so to speak. And therefore that becomes harder for me to focus. Then it becomes a burden of sort. Or so there's I'm doing something extra here that I need to put the focus on that thing. So therefore, that would be the concern, that if I'm holding money in my hands, or I'm holding a plate in my hands, or I'm holding bread in my hands, since it's not natural for today for me to hold this, because that's not something that I have to do. It's not part of that extra excitement and love that I have for today. So that becomes more of a focus. I have to put extra attention to it. But you don't have to put extra attention to something that's just so natural or so beloved. And when you don't have to put extra attention, anything that you will love is not, you don't find it difficult. Anything, like Yaakov, he worked for Rachel for 7 years. And what does the Torah say about those 7 years? It was like Yom Achadim, like a few days. There wasn't anything of time in his mind, because of the great love. So, and then the Gemara continues. Tanya, we learned in the Braita. We're now on 41b, 41b, 4. We turn the page already. 41b, 4. Tanya, Rabbi Elazar Rav Tzadok Omer, he says an amazing thing. What does he say? What was the custom of the people of Jerusalem? And we say the Anshe Yerushalayim, which probably means the people, definitely the greater people in Yerushalayim, and it could also mean that the whole Yerushalayim and the community had the following custom. Adam yotzei beito. The person would leave his house, v'lulav biyoto, which is common. You're going from your house to the synagogue, you would have the lulav in your hand. But here it says you would leave your house and your lulav was in your hand. Not that you left your house to go to the Beit HaKnesset necessarily. You just left your house and you would go in the street on the holiday. You would take, what would you take? What would be your costume, so to speak, or what would be of the holiday? Your costume would be, I don't know if I wrote this custom, but the way you're dressed, so to speak, would be you would carry a lulav. Today is the holiday of Sukkah, carry my lulav. Holech lebeit HaKnesset. You would go to the synagogue. V'lulav biyado. You would hold the lulav in your hand. Now, in your hand, in contrast to holding it maybe in a casing, you would take it out of the bag. What does it sound like over here? Well, it sounds like that you took the etrog out of the box. You took the lulav out of the case. You would walk in the street with the lulav and the etrog in in the fashion of the mitzvah. Kori kriyishma u'mispalel, when you would say the shema and you would daven, lulav biyado. You had your lulav in your hand also. you would read the Shema, you would actually imagine, like now with about Daven Shachrit, they would hold the lulav and the etrog in his, I would say, like I said, the etrog as well, in his hand when they would daven, when they say the Kriya Shema. But Torah b'Torah, but if you're reading the Torah, no set kapav, now you're reading Torah because you roll the Sefer Torah, you wrap, you open the Sefer Torah. You can't hold in your hands something and wrap at the same time and roll the Sefer Torah or open the Sefer Torah. So therefore, if you're the Bal Koreh, if you're the one who's reading, Shmuel reads the Torah, right? Or Samuel reads the Torah, whoever's reading the Torah, they would have to put the lulav down while they're reading the Torah because they have to have their hands free to roll, sometimes to roll the Sefer Torah. When you Koreh b'Torah or Nose Kapav, if you're Mr. Cohen, you're the Kohen, so you need your hands free to do the birkat, to raise your hands to the people to do the birkat kohanim. So when you was Koreh Nose Kapav Manicha al Gabe Karka, you would Adam, I don't know if you sent it to the group. Forgot to remind you. You would place it on the ground. You would put the lulav by the ground, and now, if you went to do Bika Cholim, you went to go ahead and comfort the mourners. Sounds like this is what people do on Sukkot. What do people do on Sukkot? Oh, this is you're answering Yerushalayim. Morning, Jack. What do? They go to visit the sick. They go to comfort the mourning. Lulav biyado. It's interesting that it says L'nachem Avelim on Sukkot. Let's say on, so that you have to, we don't, people don't sit Shiva on Sukkot on the holiday, but maybe to give some words of encouragement to somebody. The lulav was in his hands. You see, the commentaries pick up on the fact that even though there's no avelut, there's no mourning on the holiday. And if somebody started sitting Shiva before the holiday, even an hour before, a moment before the holiday, he sat, then the holiday knocks out the Shiva. Guy sat for 1 day before the holiday, 2 days before the holiday, then the holiday knocks it out. So this bright is talking about somebody who lost a relative during the holiday itself. Let's say during the holiday itself, let's say during Chol Hamoed, and they buried the person. So really what they do is they push off the sitting the Shiva until after the holiday, even though he doesn't conduct himself in mourning, sitting Shiva during the holiday, but since he's going to conduct himself in mourning after the holiday, his friends come to visit him and to sit with him just to make him calm him down. And that's similar to Nichlum Avelim. It's similar to comforting the person who's a mourner. Okay, so Nichlas is Beit HaMedrash, but when it comes to the Beit Midrash, when he comes to learn, what does he do? Mishageh lulavo biad beno biad avdu biad shlucho. He gives his lulav to his son to hold to him. Morning Boaz. He comes to the Beit Midrash, like the Gemara says. What does the man do when he comes to the Beit Midrash with his lulav? To get strength. Oh, right, to get strength, right. So to get strength to learn Torah. So when you enter the Beit Midrash with your lulav, what they do, Boaz, when they enter the Beit Midrash with their lulav on Sukkot, they would not hold their lulav when they learn Torah. They did not hold the lulav when they learn Torah. They gave it to their son, let's say their son who wasn't learning at that time, a younger son, or if they had a servant, or they had an agent, a shluchot. They appointed someone to hold it for him because he cannot hold the lulav while. That's a very good question. I mean, like the Gemara said before, because the answer is maybe because he wants to give someone else the opportunity of having the mitzvah, someone else of having be connected with the lulav. So if I can't, meaning they would hold the lulav as long as they can. But now, let's say they were able to afford a lulav. Not necessarily their son had a lulav. Not necessarily that every member of the house was able to afford having a lulav. Even though it's brought down, it's very good that you should buy your son a lulav. He should have his own lulav so he could be able to do the waving and everything and so on. But let's say you weren't able to afford a lulav for your son. And now so whenever you're using the lulav, you're losing the lulav. But if now you're going to learn, and when you're learning, you can't hold the lulav in your hand. Why can't you hold the lulav in your hand? So Rashi says, because when you get involved in the learning, you're going to forget you have it in your hand. You're going to just drop it, might fall on the ground. So therefore, either because it might fall on the ground, you either won't be able to focus on your learning enough because you're afraid it's going to fall, or you're actually going to focus so much. Rashi sounds like you're going to focus on your learning, and it's going to fall. So therefore, therefore, to answer Ralph's question, you don't want, or Simon's question, whoever asked the question, you don't want if you can't have the lulav in your hand, your son who doesn't have a lulav, you want your son to have it, right, Boaz? If you don't have the lulav, let my son hold the lulav. Let my son be involved in the mitzvah, in honoring the mitzvah, being connected with mitzvah, right? That's the job of a parent, to train a child to love a mitzvah, right? So therefore, you would give it to your son, or even your servant. Your servant is also okay. Even your servant who might not be obligated in mitzvot, but it's still a nice thing that he should be connected with a mitzvah. Or your shlucho. Good morning. You give it to your agent. So the Gemara says, "My kamash malon." What did Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok? He tells us this fascinating thing about the people of Yerushalayim. That the people of Yerushalayim on Sukkot, they would always, they say about the American Express card, don't leave home without it. That was what we grew up on. But now he says on Sukkot, don't leave home without the lulav. Not only don't leave home, don't be caught without a lulav on the holiday. You go in the street, you carry your lulav. You go to pray, you go to the Beit HaKnesset, you hold the lulav while they actually prayed holding the lulav in their hand. When they say the Kriya Shema and they said the Amidah, they held the lulav. They went to visit a sick person on the Yom Tov. You know what they went with? The lulav. Not because they went with the lulav to give the lulav to the sick person to fulfill the mitzvah of lulav. They not for that purpose. Let's say the sick person had a lulav. They did it because this is what you do. You love the mitzvah so much. I can't leave home without it. I want to take it with me wherever I go. Person wears a chain, a necklace, a chai. They love it. They go with it. They don't leave it at home. You take it with you. So that's what they did on the holiday. So the Gemara said, why is he telling me about how the people in Yerushalayim acted? So how much they were zrizim, how much they were diligent in the mitzvah of lulav. See, the language of diligent is an interesting language. I would have said more the language of how much beloved and cherished. But it just shows you that, that obviously the Gemara used zrizim for a reason. Zrizim means that they're so diligent and with alacrity, how they love the mitzvah and they perform the mitzvah. You could just imagine when it was time to do the mitzvah of lulav, how much they were ready to do the mitzvah with such love and zrizut. Now in Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Tov Reish Nun Beis, let's take a look what it says in Tov Reish Nun Beis, Nun Bet, about the people of Yerushalayim. These are great people of Yerushalayim. So he says, so the Ramah says, he uses also the language from the Torah. Someone who's medaktek, someone who's very, a guy who's very meticulous about his mitzvot. A high-level person, like everybody, right? Yochaz halulav biyado, hold the lulav in your hand when you go from your house to the shul, Gam bishat hatfilah. Also, while you're davening, you should hold it in your hand. Even though you're not allowed to hold anything in your hand, the Chafetz Chaim said when you're praying. If you hold something in your hand because it's going to distract you, if you're holding a baby in your hand, you're going to be distracted. Don't hold the baby when you're davening because you're going to be distracted because you're going to be focused that the baby shouldn't fall. You're not able to concentrate on davening. Don't hold your money in your hand. You're afraid the money's going to fall. But since it's a mitzvah, the Chafetz Chaim says, so you're so excited about the mitzvah, you're not even going to feel that you're holding it. You're not going to be distracted. So the Chafetz Chaim says, even though the Gemara says that the people of Yerushalayim would do this way, they would leave the house with the lulav in the hand, read the Shema, and daven with the lulav in the hand. And according to the Ramah from the Torah, it would come out. If you are very meticulous, like Simon said, about mitzvot, you should actually hold the lulav in your hand when you do that midah. Did you ever see anybody hold the lulav in the hand, lulav in the etrog when they do the amidah? I never saw anybody hold the lulav, right? I never saw such a thing, right? So the Chafetz Chaim said, today, in our days, the rabbis have written that it would look like it's not appropriate for an average person to do such a thing. Unless, because what you're really saying is, you're able to multitask to such a level that you have such a love for the lulav that you could be holding it. It's not going to distract you from your prayer, unless you're a person who was so well known. You're a Rebbe Yosef. You're so known for your focus and concentration and level of mitzvot. That person could today also hold the lulav during the midah. We don't take the lulav on Shabbat. Now, but he says, but we do have the custom today that we bring the lulav to the shul. You bring it yourself. You could have your kid, you can have your child bring the lulav for you. But better that you should do it yourself. That's also another point. The only time he gave it to his kid to hold the lulav was when he could not hold the lulav. Let's say he was learning and he can't hold the lulav and concentrate on the learning at the same time. But when he was not learning, when you're coming home from synagogue, the custom today is that and also it's an interesting thing. Let's say you go with someone to synagogue. You go with a relative, take a boaz or a friend. Should one person hold everybody's stuff? Better not. Better that each person should hold their own lulav and walk in the street with it, which that shows your love for the mitzvah. And the other question is, but we don't find. My only question is, we don't find that we would go with our lulav and etrog loose, right? We always wrap it up. But even though you're not really getting the mitzvah, it's not. I mean, it's not the way you perform the mitzvah. Perform the mitzvah when it's not in the casing. But I presume it's still honor for the mitzvah that you're carrying your lulav, you're carrying your etrog. So don't give it to someone else to carry for you. That seems to be a point that we could take out from this halacha from the Chafetz Chaim. That when you go to the synagogue in the morning, or you go home from the synagogue, take it yourself, carry it yourself, show that love. Have a great day, everybody.